Okay, good evening to all. It's nice to be back. I know I speak for the other counselors that we hope everyone had an enjoyable and rejuvenating February break. Our plan for tonight is to preview the second round of meetings that we are having with the sophomores. Alyssa is going to spend some time talking about course selection, and I am going to address some of the changes to the SAT and the ACT and what they mean for the class of 2027. For those of you that were unaware of our first round of meetings with the sophomores, which took place following the first quarter, this was a nice opportunity for the counselors to reconnect with the students, and in some cases, for students we had not seen since they were freshmen. And while these meetings were somewhat brief, it was a nice opportunity to check in and make sure that everybody was working towards whichever goals that they have set for themselves for sophomore year. Over the course of the next month, our work with the sophomores is much more targeted. The focus is on aligning their interest with course selection and beginning to discuss post-high school planning. Ellen is going to speak a little bit more about how we are approaching that with a nice fun activity we have them do with you at home. And then Lauren Keschner, the school psychologist, is also on the call, and she will discuss the skills-based workshops she's running with our 10th graders following the counselors' push-in lessons over the course of the next 2 weeks. And finally, as I mentioned, a lot of 10th grade parents and students are sort of asking what to do now that they've taken the PSAT back in October. So we'll spend a few minutes towards the end of the call discussing some of the changes to those standardized tests and help you begin to think about a standardized testing strategy. But first, Deanna is going to talk to you a little bit about our role in your child's educational journey.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope you had a great February break. So we changed our structure of the counseling department. We are 10, 11, and 12. So this is the first year that we have your students. So we're looking forward to spending the next 3 years together throughout the high school journey. So we're here to help in several aspects. First of all, we are academic support. So every year we have individual meetings with your family to help your child select their academic courses. Some of you may have started those already this week. You should have gotten an invitation, I believe, through Infinite Campus with a meeting date and time. So in addition to course selection, we're here to help your students with executive functioning skills, so organization, time management as they need it. We also help your students develop self-advocacy skills, such as sending an email to a teacher or approaching a conversation with a teacher. So we're here to help in all academic realms. We also provide social emotional support. So as needed, we've helped our students find clubs and organizations to connect them with other students, support their social lives. I've had a lot of conversations recently about summer programs and getting ready for this summer, believe it or not, even though we're in February, but almost March. It's good to start thinking ahead with planning. And we also meet with students individually if they ever need to talk about any mental health concerns, physical health, social, anything and everything. We're kind of here to be a listening ear and to help your child throughout high school. And then finally, as needed, we have a list of outside providers that you can connect your child with if they're kind of needing that additional support. We're happy to help with that. So a large chunk of our work, as we'll kind of spend a lot of tonight discussing, is post-secondary planning. As I had mentioned, since we work with 10, 11, 12, we have a big emphasis on college planning, career planning, just thinking ahead to the future. So we already started sessions this week, but this week as well as next week, we've been coming into your children's English classes to talk about academic planning and career exploration. And they've also just been given access to Maya Learning, which is a platform where they can explore colleges using Bronxville specific data and also search for careers. So around like the end of the weekish, like be on the lookout for an email. You'll also have access to Maya Learning, so you'll be able to do these college searches and see this data as well. So, throughout high school, we're kind of helping your child explore different potential paths, whether it be potential majors for college, potential careers, and then help them devise a plan, moving forward, thinking ahead to senior year when they apply. So now Miss Cohen is going to give you a deeper dive into the sophomore workshops that we kind of alluded to.
Hi, everyone. So nice to see you tonight. And it's been really nice because we've actually started our sophomore workshops this week on Monday. And pardon me, I've personally been lucky enough to go into 2 classes so far, which has been really nice to catch up with everyone and just have, the counseling office say a hello to our 10th graders. So what we're doing right now, we're in the throes of our first session, and we're going to be having 3 sessions total of workshops with the 10th grade. We're pushing into the English and history classes. And this first session that we had, we focused a bit on course selection and not just what courses are available, but we wanted to talk to kids about the bigger picture of what's important in choosing your courses, what's important in balancing your life with courses and school being a part of who you are. We know all our students are so involved in amazing activities outside of school. They have active social lives. They are, important members of their family. And of course, important that they, get an adequate amount of rest. So it's very important to, in the lens of course selection, think about what challenges the students are going to take, what they want to take, how they can highlight their interests, as well as in the big picture of their life, what is manageable and balanceable and what'll be good for them. So that was our first session. And we're going to review, so we reviewed the course offerings and we are starting, as hopefully you all have received emails about your 10th grade appointment coming up. To officially pick those courses with your counselor. Students have that in the campus backpack section of their Infinite Campus software, and parents, you should have received an email, but it should be the same in both places if one missed its way. In the second session, we're going to be doing a Holland Code career assessment inventories to give kids a little bit of an idea about their interests and their strengths and what that means in the future for potential careers to think about and explore. That's going to be co-led by the high school psychologist. I'm sorry, that's going to be led by the counselors. And then following that, we're going to have 2 sessions, which are co-led by the high school psychologist and the psychology interns. And that's where we're going to have, go a little deeper on what I touched on before, discussing social and emotional well-being. So just a little glimpse of something you might see at home. This is my career roadmap. So this is an activity we do with students, and it's really been something that's fun. In the career inventory that we do with the students, where they start to think about, what potential careers they might want to pursue or learn more about. We also talk about, adults and the road that they took on finding their personal careers. And often that road is not linear and it's windy. And I'm sure many of the people in the on this webinar right now have interesting stories to tell. So, and I don't know if your children have ever actually even heard those stories. So we send this home with them. Be prepared to maybe get a question or 2 about your career road. And, just to get them thinking on all the different things and that are out there and, what they might want to do and all the possibilities for their future. So that's my little piece. I'm going to hand it over right now to our school psychologist, Lauren Keshner, who's going to talk a little bit about the other sessions that we're going to have with them.
Hi, everyone. I know some of you, but for others, I'm Lauren Keschner, and I am the high school psychologist here at Bronxville. Tonight, I will be talking about the social emotional programming that we plan to implement and begin with our sophomores in the upcoming weeks. So, in addition to all the amazing academic support and guidance that the sophomores will be getting, myself and some psychology interns plan to be pushing into classes to expose our students to important social emotional skills that are rooted in dialectical behavior therapy, or DBT. DBT is an evidence-based therapeutic orientation that teaches students and all individuals important lifelong skills and strategies, specifically pertaining to increasing their self-awareness, managing their emotions, tolerating distress, and building and maintaining healthy relationships. So as research shows, and as we know, social emotional learning is so important, and positive mental health. It impacts all areas of functioning, and we see it all the time in the building as well. It does impact academic performance. So we're really looking forward to getting to know your students and kind of exposing them to these important skills that they can implement and hopefully generalize moving forward. So on the slide, you could see examples of 2 lessons. So the first lesson is related to what's called interpersonal effectiveness, and that is related to building and maintaining healthy relationships. So skills in this area, they look at assertiveness and helping students learn to cope and manage conflict within their different interactions. So DBT is known for acronyms. So you could see the acronym called Dear Man on the slide. And that the Dear Man lists different steps for students to use to effectively and appropriately communicate what they want and what they don't want. So it's really helping our students appropriately advocate for what they need. And this can relate to academic situations, and it also can relate to peer situations and interpersonal relations that they may encounter moving forward. So the second lesson is related to emotion regulation, and that helps students identify and manage and regulate all the different emotions that they may feel throughout the day or throughout the year. And one of the acronyms that relates to emotion regulation is called the PLEASE skill. And as you can see on the screen, it's a little bit self-explanatory, but it is related to taking care of your physical health. And as we know, physical health and prioritizing your physical health is directly related to your emotional health. And we want the students to see that there is this correlation, and that if they take care of themselves physically, then that definitely decreases emotional vulnerability for them throughout the days. So these are just 2 quick examples of skills that we will be teaching. And the hope is that the students are exposed to the skills. We're going to practice the skills and give them different situations in which they can apply to. And then again, hopefully they get generalized and used throughout their time in Bronxville and beyond. So that is what we plan on doing. And kind of a side note, I just want to say I collaborate very closely with the counselors. And so if you have any concerns regarding your students, please feel free to reach out to me moving forward. And I think that's it. I'm not sure. There you go.
Awesome. So I get to talk about course selection a little bit more in depth. And so you'll see here, right, there are well, I should say first, hi, I'm Alyssa Levy. I'm one of the school counselors. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we're going to be talking more in depth about your student-specific course selection process when you meet with one of your counselors as a family. But just to provide a little bit of an overview, this visual does a nice job of really representing things to consider when making a plan for your child's junior year. Sort of a lot of different things have to work together in order for a student to be successful. So Ellen touched upon this a bit when she spoke about the idea of balance, right? The combination of rigor of coursework, academic performance from this year as well as last year, a student's ability to utilize key study skills and a balanced schedule, both extracurricularly and also inside of the classroom, is really important, and also what we're really aiming for when we're meeting with our students. Thank you. So junior year, I'm sure you've heard, is commonly referred to as maybe the most challenging year of high school for students. And this can be true for a variety of different reasons, which you can see on the slide. But as it relates to course selection specifically and our upcoming family meetings, I really want to note that a large contributor can be a student's access to higher level advanced placement courses. So in 11th grade, which is what's different from 9th into 10th, AP options are really available in most departments. And many of the AP courses are reading and writing intensive, even in some of the science courses. So it's going to be crucial for your child not only to pick the right courses to take, but also the right combination of courses to take. And so in your course selection meetings, your counselor is really going to help you and your family ensure that schedules are well balanced and also align with your child's area of interest. And then on top of that, right, as you've mentioned and you've heard us mention, exploration, again, really does happen both in and outside of the classroom. So to highlight first our clubs, we have a wide range of clubs and activities available to Bronxville students. Uniquely, these club meetings happen during the day. So they're during our X block period twice a week. No, these aren't just extended lunches during the school day, even though many students think that they may be. But X block is really designed for students to be able to meet with different clubs during lunch, not only to allow for more time outside of school for other extracurricular commitments, but also for students to be able to connect with similarly interested students throughout the day. So if you know your child has not yet joined a club, it's definitely not too late. We have a list of clubs in our office, and it's also posted on the high school website. So definitely not too late to join, and we really encourage that. And then lastly, there's also a number of ways for students to explore their interests within our Bronxville curriculum. So through our core curriculum, as well as our elective course options, students have access to a variety of different subject areas. And as they move through the different grade levels, they may have some more space in their schedule to take more and more opportunities of new subject areas, but also at different rigor levels, meaning, again, advanced placement courses versus honors level. In our course selection meeting, we can really try to help and do our best of matching your child's passions and interests with our course curriculum. And beyond that, students who want to deepen their understanding of a topic not covered in our curriculum can create an independent study proposal. So this really allows them to engage in a field of interest with a faculty member and take a deep dive into a topic of their choice. It can be full year, it can be for just a semester. But on the slide, you can see examples of topics that students have previously explored. And really, the sky's the limit. We've seen really some very creative research projects. So something to maybe think about as you move into junior year. And with that, everybody's favorite topic, standardized testing. Thanks.
All right, thank you all. Thank you to the counselors. So as I alluded to before, 10th grade is a great time to start thinking about standardized testing. I know some of your children, some of your students took the PSAT in October, and some of them didn't, and either is quite fine. Before we get into the nuances of the two exams, I do want to mention that over the past, I guess, 4.5 years since we've come out of sort of the COVID lockdown, standardized testing has gone through a lot of different changes. We came out and everything was test optional, and slowly that pendulum is beginning to swing back, in my opinion. Most recently, the University of Pennsylvania is reinstating the requirement for submitting test scores for next year's applicants. And so I think while there will always be schools that are test optional, that have always been test optional, Wake Forest being a popular example among our students, I think you're going to see overwhelmingly that many schools are going to go back to requiring these test scores. Colleges, colleges have a lot of conflicting interests, in my opinion, but one of them most definitely is accepting students that are going to graduate on time. And if you sort of dig into the literature on standardized testing, it is their belief that these test scores are good indicators of student success when they get to college. So it's not about aptitude or intelligence, but it's about college success. Granted, this is one metric of many in the admissions process. And so it's not the end all be all, but as it becomes, you know, as more and more schools revert back to requiring these tests, you know, 10th grade is the perfect time to sort of dig in and figure out, you know, what's best for your student and begin to plan. So for those of you that maybe have older students or have been following some of the emails out of the department, you might know that it's about a year ago today, last March, the SAT underwent some changes, which moved it to a completely digital test. So that means that students are taking this test on the computer. There's no longer paper and pencil. And the exam is now adaptive, which means that as you move through the first module of each section, the math section and the reading and writing sections, based on how you do, the second module of the test is either harder or what they're going to call not as hard or potentially easy. And that sort of drives students' overall scores. So this is, you know, is quite new. And, you know, I would say generally speaking, students do enjoy this digital exam. I would say generally speaking, students, if you have any older children or when your child does take this test, if they leave and feel like the test was hard, that's probably a good sign that they moved into the harder module of the different sections. And that's like a pretty big shift from, you know, the historical paper and pencil test that everybody's used to taking. As you can see, the exam was shortened considerably to, again, you know, make it easier for students to move through these tests, you know, without having to spend their entire Saturday at a testing center. And it was broken, you know, it was once a math section, a reading section, and a writing section. They've combined that reading and writing section into one sort of overarching section. And the exam has now gone back to being out of 1600, where it was once 2400 not too long ago. The ACT is also undergoing some major changes. You might notice some themes that are in line with the previous testing organization's changes. So now this test is also going to be much shorter, approximately 2 hours. And in doing that, they're both making sections optional, which I'll talk about in a second, and then you can see they're cutting the total amount of questions. So I think in a lot of ways, this test might also end up becoming quite student friendly, whereas historically, this test was much longer, many more questions, and probably just a little bit, quote unquote, harder for students to prepare for given its overall length. What they are also doing is making these two sections optional, the science and the writing section. So in the past, the exam consisted of English, math, reading, science, and writing. They're now allowing students just to take what they're calling this core exam, which is English, math, and reading. There was once a time when the SAT had major changes that counselors probably across all, you know, high schools in the US said to stay away from the SAT because nobody knew what was going to happen. I think we're entering that zone with these ACT changes, quite frankly. And as I sort of prepared those comments earlier today, we received an email from Northwestern that said they are going to accept just that core exam of the ACT. So they're just the English, math, and reading. And if a student takes the science section, they'll obviously accept it, but it's not going to be required. So some schools are slowly starting to come out with requirements as it relates to this changing test. This test, as you see it, doesn't go into effect until April. So it's all still very new. But nonetheless, it's going to be difficult to prepare for this test appropriately right now. However, I would say, just as we sort of like look ahead to sort of the plan here and what this all means, for those of you who maybe have had children already prepare for the ACT and feel like that's the test for this next child in your family, I would say by the summer into early fall, like more preparation materials will exist for this newly designed ACT. So this grade should be in a much better space than maybe like the current junior class. All right, so now that we know these differences, what do? We really encourage you to start with a diagnostic exam. And so what that means is taking a practice test of both tests to see which test is best suited for your child. There's no grade on a transcript or anything that we in the counseling department can deduce just looking at your student as to which test is going to be better suited for them. They really need to take a practice test. I've highlighted that the junior class is holding a fundraiser as early as this weekend for a mock SAT, and later on in March for a mock ACT. Information about that should have gone out before February break, but I can definitely share it again with everybody tomorrow as when I send a recap out of this meeting. This is just one of many opportunities to take practice tests. You frankly can find practice tests, as close as here on Pondfield Road with Bespoke, who the junior class uses to help with this fundraiser, and as easy as just going onto Khan Academy and looking at their test prep material. Once you figure out which test you are going to take, and again, using the results from these diagnostics as your guide, you really just want to plan backwards and give yourself however much time you think you might need to adequately prepare for these exams. The sort of rule of thumb is 3 months preparation. I would say maybe some students need a little bit more, maybe some students need a little bit less, but you want to give yourself at least 3 months of a runway before you sit for your first test. Obviously, somewhat similar to your course selection, you want to keep in mind sort of extracurricular and outside of school commitments that are going to interfere with essentially like another class to prepare for. Like this test preparation is, definitely at least one, but more likely and to a student's benefit to spend like 2-3 hours a week preparing for these exams, whether that's through taking practice tests. We're really digging into different themes or concepts or topics that they need to brush up on in preparation for whichever test you sign up for. So you want to give yourself at least 3 months. And then you also want to make sure that by June of next year, of junior year, a student has had an opportunity to take a test at least 2 times. The reason I say 2 is because most students need a second time to take any one of these exams. I mean, obviously there are students who do well enough or are satisfied with the results after their first sitting, but most students definitely take the test more than once. Some students even in taking it upwards of 3 times. You most definitely can take the exam in the fall of senior year and still apply to college, either early action or early decision. It's just not necessarily another thing you want to sort of have on your to-do list to sort of take away from everything else that's happening during senior year, excuse me. So whenever possible, try to get this taken care of before the summer of senior year. And then just lastly, in terms of, sometimes people ask about which test do colleges prefer. Colleges, are very test agnostic. There's really no preferred test. they really want to see whichever exam shows, the student in the best light or puts their best foot forward. So it's really up to the students to decide what is best suited for them. The ACT is very, very reading heavy. That science section I spoke about, which is now optional, that science section, which I spoke about, which is now optional, is really a reading section in disguise of a science section, right? Like there's no pre-existing science knowledge you need for that. You just need to be able to read graphs, read the questions, and quickly answer accurately. So this test is more reading heavy. The SAT is not as reading heavy. So that sort of brings us to the end of our prepared comments. We are more than happy to answer any questions. Again, just if you kind of tap your screen, you can open up the chat box, or if you're on a laptop or a computer, it should be at the bottom of your screen. We thank you for joining us. Again, just counselors mentioned a few things that I just want to recap. There is a letter that has a little bit more material actually than we even covered tonight, that has links to it in the letter. That is the appointment date and time for your child's sophomore planning meeting. So please make sure you check that out. That's in the campus backpack. We will get everybody set up on Maya Learning by the end of the week, and so you should get just an automated email from Maya Learning giving you a temporary password. The course selection meetings are happening either on Zoom or in person, whichever your preference. So just make sure you read your welcome letter with your appointment date and time, and reach out to your child's counselor if you have any questions. As I sort of recap this, no questions have come through, so I think we will stop doing that. Oops, sorry. Oh, I did get a question. Okay, so sorry, just need to read through these questions and then I'll be able to answer them. I apologize. Yeah, so there was a question about super scoring on the SAT. So if you take the March SAT and your math score and your English and reading scores are both 650, and then you take it again in June and get a 660 and a 650, you can super score is what they refer to, or sort of mix and match those scores. That's going to be allowed at almost every college. Georgetown historically has not really accommodated students super scoring. They want to see the scores of every test, but otherwise, generally speaking, that is definitely something that students can do. And so oftentimes a student will do better on one section than the other and then say, at least to me in conversation, I'm really focusing on math this next time because I want to get that score up so my super score can be, a little bit better. The second question is about the PSAT. So the official PSAT from the College Board that was administered in October is only offered once a year, every October. We'll obviously do it again in October of 2025, and that will allow the juniors that take the test to be eligible for the National Merit Scholarship Program. So that is the only officially College Board sponsored PSAT. Any practice SAT, I think, is a good practice SAT and can be seen as a PSAT. It's just not designed by the College Board. And so if you enlist the help of any local tutoring agency or any individual, they will most definitely have mock exams for you to practice on, which you could very much consider a PSAT. All right, we appreciate you all joining us. Again, please check Infinite Campus for your child's appointment date and time to meet with your counselor. We're gonna sign off, but we look forward to seeing you in person or again on Zoom very, very soon. Good night, all.